Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast. I'm Danielle Z, your host, and today I'm so happy to welcome Maria. She is a certified grief educator and also grief guide. So, welcome, Maria. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. I am so honored. It's a privilege to be on your show, and I love the
Thank
title of
you.
your name.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, and I'm glad you said that because you being a kind of grief guru, I actually just came up with that. So there you can have it. Um, healing is so, is part of the grieving process. And I would just love for you to share maybe just a little bit about your story, about how you got here, because I know we talked on previous calls, but I think what your story is so empowering and so heartfelt that just share with the audience that kind of led you to this path.
Well, thank you so much for that. Yes, so my oldest son, when he was 16, was diagnosed with an incurable blood cancer. And for 11 years, we lived with the uncertainty of what was going to happen next, right? There's the hospital visits, the crises, the surgeries, the treatments, all of that for 11 years. Uh,
Wow.
and then when he passed away, and anyone who experiences loss, your world shatters. And when you look out your window, everyone is still moving like nothing happened. And for me,
Yes.
that aspect, I because none of us know how we're going to respond to grief. And for 10 years, I lived in this autopilot, this limbo, or as
Mm.
sometimes I like to say, a zombie state,
Mm.
where basically we're presenting ourselves with this mask of saying, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm this, and underneath there are so many different emotions that we don't know. We keep
Mhm.
hearing these platitudes and cliches of getting back to who we were. Why aren't you getting back to normal? And we don't know what normal is anymore because our world
No.
has changed. And the aspect is everyone's expecting us to get back to normal. And I know one of the things, and of course, and healing, the word healing is used so much. Oh, you got to heal, you got to get. And I think in that 10 year, well, I don't think I believe in those 10 years when I was on autopilot and in limbo, being afraid to move forward, because that's the aspect. I don't know what forward is anymore. And
Mm.
going back just seemed like, how can I go back when someone you experienced loss, the person that died is no longer here? And so we're sort of in that in between, and healing feels like I got to forget who passed away.
Mm.
And so I believe I was really rebelling against that word healing until it came to me that grief was walking beside me. I didn't have to choose about my emotions. I didn't have to say, oh, I have to forget my son because now he's gone, which is what most people had wanted me to do. Almost like, don't talk about him, don't
Mhm.
mention anything. And that's what a lot of grievers feel like, that we cannot share stories about our loved ones.
Interesting.
And
Mm.
so part of my pillars of care became healing is not about forgetting. When we have a traumatic experience, we don't forget the trauma. What we want to do is we want to get to a point where we're coming from the scars, where the pain no longer is livid and raw.
Absolutely. No, I love that you said, because and I know I've shared this with you and I'll share with the audience, experiencing my own grief of losing my mother in my early 20s, that grief is something that rocks you to your core and changes who you are. Um, and I think as you grieve, and I love that you brought up kind of like the healing aspect of it and how you kind of resisted that because you attached that to, forgetting. Um, in my journey, it takes a long time. I mean, I always say, as you know, grieving, when people are like, oh, your grieving process, I'm like, it's never ending. Once that person's story ends, unfortunately, on this physical earth, you're grieving for the rest of your life. So I know that in the mental health world, they've talked about, stages of grief, which I don't agree with, to be quite frank. Because you can't, you can't be like, okay, step one, you're, I guess, in denial or anger, it's like, it's too fluid and so individual. Because I'm sure, as you know, working with your clients, how individual grieving is for every single person in the world.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is. I mean, loss is universal.
Mm-hmm.
How we grieve is personal. There's
Yeah.
no cookie cutter, one size fits all. And I love how you mentioned the stages, because in some
Hmm.
ways, we've been sold this package
Yes.
of stages of these check marks. I always go, as a griever, I know who died. Like,
Hmm.
and there's no accept. When people say acceptance, it's kind of like, yeah, I know who died. I've already, we accept that. And it's
Yeah.
not that we don't, it's grief is in layers.
Mm.
Our brains want to protect us. And so at times where people will go, oh, that first year is the hardest. No, the first year is the blur.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And the second year is all of a sudden, okay, our brains have sort of said, okay, now you can start, and I don't even like the word process in some ways, but
Mm.
we use it for lack of better word.
Yes.
Grief is a journey that, you're right, lasts with us for as long as we're alive. And it doesn't go away. It changes in intensity. And there are days where it's going to be that rawness, even 10 years
Hmm.
down the road.
Absolutely.
And it's also going to be that softness.
Mm.
So when we look at it, that it's a journey with different intensities. And I know I use the waves because I think sometimes,
No, I think that's a lovely metaphor. I love that metaphor with grief.
right? Because it is when we see waves of the ocean or lakes, depending on where it is, sometimes the waves are gentle.
Mm-hmm.
And other times the waves are strong, they're stormy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can see grief as just waves, then I think it makes us a little bit easier to sort of say, okay, how are we going to ride the wave today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that you brought up the metaphor of waves, because like to use the metaphor of waves when it comes to our emotions and grief, and the emotions tied to grief, sadness, maybe sometimes anger, frustration. They're gonna come, they're gonna surface up, they're gonna bubble up. And I just, for any of you out there that are, have grieved someone, most of us, as you said, grieve, the loss is universal. And I love that you brought that up, because I feel like we live in a society where we are expected kind of to all grieve the same, but it's as I said, it's so individual and so, as you said, so personal to the person. The way you grieve is very different the way how I grieve. I mean, I know you mentioned that limbo period that you were in. I had a similar experience with my mother where there was a little bit of a limbo period. And I remember thinking, when she finally passed away, I thought I was going to be like overcome with like a feeling of relief, but that didn't happen. So I think it's really important to listen to our bodies, listen to ourselves, and let kind of the grief come in and welcome it instead of resisting it. Because if you resist it, I've found in my experience with working with grief and my own grief, it's going to come back in a different form.
Well, they say what we resist persists.
Yes, that is very true. Very true. You're right.
And it is it. because one of the aspects I always go, when we're hurting, it's nor natural to want to run away from the pain. I always
Absolutely.
go, I'm one of the biggest chickens. No one wants pain.
Yeah, no.
Uh, and yet, with grief, it's about leaning in and embracing it, which seems to go against the grain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also that aspect of when we think of grievers, we think of them as being like stoic and silent.
Mm-hmm.
And in actual fact, it's the vulnerability of sharing our stories, which actually releases and helps us release that pain. That helps us release the guilt that we carry, the
Mm-hmm.
regrets. And in some ways, we forget that even with grief, there is some shame to it. There's the
Yeah.
shame of saying, oh, you're still grieving. You haven't gotten over it. Why
Mm-hmm.
are you still sad? Why? And we keep that in our bodies,
Yes, we do.
and our bodies then want to release it, and it'll show up in different ways. I always go, when we inhale and when we breathe, how long can you hold your breath for? Eventually, we're going to have to exhale. And if we don't,
Mhm.
something else is going to show up in different ways. And that's what our body does.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up like shame and those kind of feelings because as normalizing that, that there is shame attached, unfortunately, to grief. And shame is a very, very, very powerful emotion from my experience with it. And as you mentioned, it stays in your body. So you have to, release it somehow. And I always say, in my own grieving processes dealing with shame, and it's painful, as you said, to look in the mirror. And another thing you mentioned, I think and this is just my take on grief, so I'd love your thoughts on it, but I truly feel that grief is the purest form of love. It's
Mm,
very painful, but it's because there's so much pain there. It's because you loved that person so deeply that there's a beautiful poem. I think I sent it to you over email. It's the pain of grief is the price we pay for love. And it's this beautiful poem that it's like, I won't go I don't know it by heart, but it's basically like describing, a griever's journey, and that it feels like, when you lose somebody that is very close to you, doesn't matter, it could be family or friend, whatever. It's like a major operation. It's like losing an arm. It's like losing a major appendage to your body, and you have to learn to live without that.
mhm,
And like if you look at the metaphor of using your body as a metaphor, like let's say you lost your leg, you have to learn how to walk, learn how to get around without a leg. I mean, that's going to be extremely difficult. you
And
know
so true. When you're using that, people will say it's that invisible where you still feel like
hmm
it's there.
exactly.
And it is when we think of grief. I mean, grief is a large umbrella and it covers
hmm
so many aspects. And when we're talking about love, it's because of the death of a person. Because
hmm
we can have grief over loss of friendships, loss of a
of
job,
course, of
like that,
course.
right? So
Absolutely.
sometimes I always go, there's that differentiation, and there's also different nuances
hmm
to grief in the sense of when we say it's not a one size fits all, because it is a large umbrella. Loss is a large umbrella.
hmm
And then even when we have the loss of a person, of someone we love, there are other losses that come that are unexpected, that we don't
hmm
realize are coming. The friends that stop calling because all of a sudden you've changed. Or
yeah.
even sometimes when we're going back to say the feelings,
uh
one of the aspects that I do want to say in regards to shame is that sometimes there is the relief of when someone has been diagnosed with an illness and it has been a long time. So
mm
sometimes people will feel shame because they feel that relief of they're not in pain anymore. and you're still missing them. So we have so many different emotions that are
Absolutely.
jumbling. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that whatever you're feeling, there is no right or wrong to feelings. They are feelings. And so we need to acknowledge them without judgment, because that's where we get the shame, right? We're judging
Yes,
our
you're
own
right.
feelings.
Yep, exactly. No, I love that you said that. And I love that you also mentioned grieving, friendships, grieving a job loss, grieving, sometimes as you grow and that as you change and evolve as a person, you're grieving different identity, your identity shedding layers of yourself. And I don't think we talk about that enough of because I've been in I'll share on my growth journey. I've had to, unfortunately I've lost, not, not physically, obviously, but like relationships have crumbled. And I mean, I've grieved them like I grieved a death. I mean, it was very, painful. Now I've, moved on and things have, it's been years, but it was a very difficult time in my life. And I almost felt like, as you said, the shame comes in there, the judgment comes in. Like I almost judged myself a little bit because I'm like, well, like, why are you taking this so to heart? And I was like, why are you like feeling like this? Like, and it took a lot of work on myself and I guess I don't, yeah, I agree with you. The word processing, maybe there's a different word that we can, maybe we'll come up with it on the episode, but I don't know. For lack of a better term for the word processing, I really had to process and come to terms with the pain of a loss of like two really good friends that I had. And I didn't think it was normalized in like society or my other friends like to really be as vulnerable as I really wanted with them. um but and I think in order to go, you need to be on your own journey and experience it firsthand to really understand that kind of grief. Because it's very, very interesting, I'll say. Because yeah, it's not like the person is gone. They're just, you've just moved on from each other.
Yeah, and you're right. Grief is an uncomfortable topic.
It is. It
It,
is.
it
Yeah.
whether it's a person's alive or dead, yes,
Hmm.
the nuances are going to be different.
Hmm.
It doesn't make it any less valid. And I think
No.
that's the aspect sometimes with grief is we're putting sometimes on this comparison
Mm.
of, oh, well, this one takes priority over this. And it's kind of like whatever grief a person is going through is valid and it's important. And one of the aspects that I always like to say, and this is one of my mentors, is that the worst type of grief is your grief.
Mm.
And we make it not secondary, but we brush it off because,
Mm.
and I believe it's one of these aspects of human nature. We want to sort of say, oh, yeah, I'm not, what I'm feeling is not important.
Mm. Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
And that's part of when I look at, from my own journey, I came up with the pillars of care,
Okay.
which is an acronym. And care is about giving, see, like compassion for yourself. We are our harshest critics.
Are. Yes, we are.
And then A is for acknowledgement, acknowledging our feelings and our thoughts without judgment. A lot of times, our thoughts come with judgment.
I would say most of the time. Yeah, like yeah. I would say like pretty much all the time for me at least. I'm speaking personally, but for me all the time.
And it takes a while. I mean,
It does.
when I talk about the pillars of care, this is a daily practice. It's not something that, okay, I've done it, it's one and done. It's not. It's a daily practice of giving yourself compassion, of acknowledging thoughts and feelings without judgment. R is to release because we carry the regrets, the what ifs, the should haves, um, the guilt and the
Mm-hmm.
shame. So how do we release that?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, E is for the embracing. And as you
Mm.
said, the growth. Who are we being right this moment? And who are we becoming?
Yes.
And it's in our vulnerability that gives us the freedom to become who we are. I always like to say it's the I am.
Yeah.
That's it. I am, without giving ourselves a title, without giving us a role,
Mm.
saying my being is I am.
I love that. And just being present with that and not having to add a feeling, an adjective. I talk a lot about I am statements, living in the world that I live in with mental health and how impactful they are. Because there's a big difference between an I am statement and an I feel statement, or I think statement, or I am doing, or, they fill in the blank, and as you said, like, all the things that you just mentioned, I love, thank you for sharing that CARE acronym. That is beautiful. And I always say to people, there's a lovely woman who her name's Dr. Kristen Neff, and she has this, go to her website. She's like the pioneer of self-compassion. And she has a lot of meditations and a lot of, just like she does a lot of workshops on self-compassion. And I think especially when you're grieving, that's the most and probably one of the most pivotal times in your life where you need to give yourself grace, like, and because it loss and grief, and I know we're like the holidays are coming up. No, it's November. And I mean, I know for me personally that around this time I always don't know how I'm gonna feel. I just kind of I go through the motions and I'm like, all right, we'll just take it one day at a time. Some years are easier than others. But I just go with it with more of like an open mind instead of saying, all right, like you should feel like this, or if and I just take it one day at a time.
And I love that. And that's an aspect, whether you're grieving or not, is really to say, take things one day at a time, take things one moment at a
Hmm.
time. And it's so true. We're harsher on ourselves. And part of that is because I think we're grief illiterate. We're also in a
Mm.
society that kind of says, if you're not in this pursuit of happiness, then something obviously is wrong with you. You need to be fixed.
Mm.
And it is. I mean, the self growth, self development is a big industry.
Of course. I mean,
And
I'm in it, so.
well, and it depends on, I always go, is it about saying we're broken and need to be fixed? Or is it about saying, you know what? Your intuition tells you exactly what it is that is right for you.
Hmm.
And yet we want to be like a cookie cutter version of someone else. We see someone else
Mm.
who's successful, who does it one way, and we're like, okay, I want to
I
be like
want to
that
do it that way.
person.
Yeah.
And our personality is not that person.
Absolutely. I believe in wholeheartedly, pun intended, that we all are whole to begin with. It's just, like that's what I do a lot of work with my clients. I tell them all the time, like, you are not broken. You are beautiful and whole as you are. I just work with you to kind of make you shine a little bit. I pull out the pieces that, we want to, you want to work on to help you live your best life. And I love that you said that, like, it's like we're not nobody here, and even if you're going through your own journey, you're right, there is too much of an emphasis on, oh, you have to be happy all the time. It's actually funny. I actually had a talk with my therapist not too long ago about like the pursuit of happiness, and especially in Western culture, the pursuit of happiness, happiness, happiness. Like, and we kind of came to the collective decision that, I mean, happiness is a wonderful thing to want to, be. Of course, everybody wants to be happy, but I think we put too much of an emphasis on it, and instead we should actually put, we both agreed to put more emphasis on like more inner peace and solace, because she used the example and I loved it. She's like, I could eat a donut right now and be happy. Like it would make me happy. I would be like, cure a little sugar craving. But in the long term, maybe like how I felt after I digested it and after I ate it, maybe tonight, if it kept me up, that caffeine from the sugar, I might not be feeling so happy. So sometimes those fleeting moments in life that you choose happiness, we should really be looking for peace. And with peace comes, as you said, practice, discipline. It's a little bit more nuanced than just chasing happiness, if you will.
And I love how you used the with the donut as a
Yeah.
visual. Yes. I have a sweet tooth. I also used to be heavy. And that is one of the aspects that when we think about it, we eat the donut and then we feel guilty because we ate it.
Hmm.
And even with my aspect of being overweight and then coming to a healthy weight,
Hmm.
what I ended up gaining is when you want to eat the donut with pleasure, with joy,
Hmm. Yes.
and that's it. And you know that you're not gonna, and that releases the guilt. And it's
Mm.
not that you're going to have any more than that. Because if you make it into something that you're enjoying, then it's okay. And when we turn it back to grief, it's the same way. If we're going to say, I'm grieving, I'm sad today, allow the sadness to
Hmm.
be okay. And if we're going out and we're laughing, allow the laughter to be okay. Because either
Hmm.
way, at times, I mean, I went through this, and most people do. When you first laugh because you think something's funny,
Hmm.
we feel guilty because we laughed. And it's,
I know that you enjoyed yourself for one moment of your life. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the aspect is when we're vulnerable, when we acknowledge and we're aware, it's saying it's okay what I'm feeling. And
Hmm.
one of the aspects is allow no one else to make your feelings or your thoughts wrong.
Mm.
Because we allow other people to
Yeah.
dictate how we are supposed to grieve. And no one can tell anyone else how to grieve. I
No,
was
absolutely
talking
not.
to someone else and a client, and she was saying, the way she grieved was she was more stoic.
Hmm.
Her sister was more expressive,
Yeah.
and people were actually saying to her that she wasn't grieving properly because we have this expectation that grievers are supposed to be expressive,
Hmm.
showing their emotions on their sleeves out there. It's not. We're
Hmm.
going to express our grief in our own personality. Some of us are going
Absolutely.
to be more expressive, some of us are more silent. Both are completely right.
Absolutely. I think there is no right or wrong to grieving. I mean, in my humble opinion, there is no it's so personal, and I think also too it's very situational, based off of, I mean, unfortunately, and this is just life, I feel like many people have lost maybe more than one person. I'm using death as the universal loss here. But I know that I've grieved different people and my relationship with them differently. Um, my mother, of course, very, very, to this day still very hurts a lot, but it was a little different than, when my grandmother passed away. Potentially, people indirectly that I've known. I think it's very, as I said, very situational on on your relationship with the person, and you can grieve one way for one relationship, and it's okay to grieve another way with the other one, you
Yes, and
know?
I'm so glad that you pointed that out because that,
Yeah,
that is so true. Our relationships are going to have what the depth of our grief is like.
absolutely. Yeah. No, I found in my and that you being a potential marriage and family therapist, thinking very relationally, like not only are you grieving the person, but you're also grieving the relationship. I mean, the relationship is something that was there, it was present, and that has a huge impact on, on you as a human being. I mean, I'll share that. Like the one thing that hits me the hardest, and I'm thankful I have a very loving father. that, we have a great relationship. But like one of those things is like in a time of good, bad, like, and these are just daily things, like, and it doesn't happen so often because my mom has been passed away for, pretty, I would say, but almost 15 years now. So it's been, but in the beginning, who do you call when you're an emergency or something really good happens? Always your mom. It's like your mom is always the first phone call. And that took me a long time to kind of accept, as you said, the A in your care, to accept that like, yeah, and like even the fact I don't have a mom in my phone is kind of crazy to me, but I don't think of it like that anymore because I mean I've, you know, gone through the motions and it's kind of, but it's still, I mean, there are days where I'm like, oh, it would be nice to, get her input on this or her advice or something like that, but I don't, I just kind of, as I said, I accept it and I sit with, as you said, and I love that you said sit with your sadness or sit with your feelings. I'm a big sit with, sit with girl, I guess. I don't know. Because if you don't allow that feeling to come to the surface. And we cannot, I have this new quote that I'm saying in all my podcasts that feel emotions and feelings demand to be felt.
So true. And it reminds me of a quote by John Green that says pain needs to be felt.
Yes. Yes.
And
Pain is another one. Yep.
yeah, and that's
Pain's
the
a big one, actually.
well, and that's the aspect is that a lot of times being vulnerable is saying, I miss my mom. I
Mm-hmm.
miss that I can't call her. And
Mm-hmm.
whether it's been 15 years or year one, the intensity is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
The missing is going to be the same.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the aspect that I really want to get across from it for grief is to say, let's make it a conversation where you can openly say, yeah, I miss her. Or someone else can ask, hey, tell me about your mom.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
like? What was she like? And
Mm-hmm.
these are things that, as a griever, we want people to say, I remember who she was. Or I would like you to tell me stories about her
Yeah.
so that way I get to know more about her.
And I firmly believe, and I'm sure I know in the work that your son is super proud of you from what, your experience and what you've touched so many lives by doing the work that you do. I know in my heart that my mother lives through me. Like the moral, the values and beliefs that she instilled in me, I bring those out into the world. And that to me is her legacy. So like when people, it's so funny you mentioned that when people say to me like, "Oh, I never met your mom. I wish I did." And I'm like, "You are meeting her though, like through me, you know?"
I love that because it's so true.
Yeah.
You are your mother's daughter.
I am for the good and the bad. I am. No, but Maria, this has been such a beautiful conversation and thank you for just shedding light to as you said, like kind of, grief is not the most comfortable topic and thank you for holding space for me and being so vulnerable with me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I do appreciate that you shared about your mother.
Yes.
Also, it is. Um, and as you say, I love that you have this podcast. It's about making topics that are heavy
Mm-hmm.
mainstream. And sometimes, again, normal is one of those words that, for lack of anything,
I know. I know. I don't like the word. You know what? I actually, Maria, I've heard this in my other colleagues. Sometimes the word common instead of, I try to use the word common instead of normal sometimes. I'm not saying common is a better word, but I like it better than normal.
oh, yeah, because
Yeah,
what is normal, right?
exactly. Yeah. Who says is what's normal?
But thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic opportunity to have a conversation with you, to share with your audience. Definitely.
Thank you so much, Maria. And where could everybody find you? I know you have your website, which is your first and last name at .com, Maria. Belanick
mariablenick.com.
dot com. And then you also are on Instagram. What is it? A grief, forgive me,
A grief unscripted,
grief
because
unscripted.
it's grief is unscripted. We don't
It
script
really is.
the lines.
There's no playbook to grief. But thank you so much for for being on the show. And for everybody out there, as per usual, the Feeling and Healing podcast is available on YouTube as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Till next time.